Hello, everyone, and welcome to our last lecture of the semester, the lecture on the particles to and nibud. You've already encountered to and nibud, but this is a good opportunity to review it. So to and nibud are particles that can be added to the end of a series of pronouns, adverbs, and certain adjectives, and they indicate specificity or lack of specificity. And you see how in the title of this slide, we have dash to and dash nibud. They're always added to other words with a dash. So to indicates specificity. It means you have some particular thing in mind. And nibud indicates a lack of specificity. And they can be added to lots of words, but the words they're most commonly added to are что, кто, где, куда, когда, как, and какой. To can also be added to почему to mean for some reason. Nibud isn't normally added to почему. So let's talk a little bit more about to. To, as I said in the previous slide, indicates specificity. And you can sort of envision it as it's a word that's used when the speaker has a specific person, place, or goal in mind, but isn't naming it. But they have something specific in mind, but they can't or won't name it explicitly. That might seem a little abstract. So in a more concrete sense, it can often be translated into English as some. So что-то is something, кто-то is someone, где-то or куда-то are somewhere, какой-то some kind of, and почему-то for some reason. Когда-то has the same meaning, but we don't have a some when in English, so we can translate it as once at one point. And so you can often translate it as some, but don't think that it's a word for word kind of a thing. Some textbooks will tell you it's not some. Don't translate it as some, but 9 times out of 10, you can translate it as some kind of some. But bear in mind that it doesn't align 100% with the use of some in English. Still, that's a good way to conceptualize it, and it frequently can be translated as some. Nibud, on the other hand, is used to indicate non-specific items or a lack of specificity. And one way to think of it is it's used when the speaker does not have a specific person, place, thing, or goal in mind. And they're just asking about anything. And it can be translated into English frequently as any. So кто-нибудь often means anyone, что-нибудь often means anything, где-нибудь or куда-нибудь often means anywhere, как-нибудь anyhow, and как-нибудь is used very commonly, much more commonly than in English. And какой-нибудь, any kind of, also used very commonly in Russian. And again, since we don't have an any when in English, когда-нибудь can often be translated as ever. Once again, this doesn't line up 100%, but it's a basic rule of thumb that this is more or less how it works. So what are some guidelines for using to and nibud? Note that I say guidelines, not rules. There aren't really what you'd call hard and fast rules for when to use this or how to use this, but there are some general guidelines that will mean if you follow them, you're going to be right more often than not. Ultimately, of course, it's a question of style and having a feel for the language, but that's not very helpful when you're just learning the language, so here are some basic guidelines. To is best used in positive declarative sentences in the past or the present. So if you're saying, I did something or I am doing something, you're going to want to use to constructions most of the time. So for example, Я когда-то читала эту книгу, which can be translated as something like, I once read this book, or at some point I read this book. I have at some point read this book. Or Он куда-то ходил вчера. He went somewhere yesterday. Note the use of a multidirectional verb of motion in the past tense to indicate a single round trip. Он куда-то ходил вчера. Or кто-то звонил. Someone called. Again, if you think about this, if someone called and you took a message, you may not know exactly the name of the someone, but you have a specific someone in mind. There's definitely a someone who called. Он почему-то очень любит дождь. For some reason, he really likes rain. And these почему-то constructions are used quite commonly in Russian, much more than in English. So just keep an eye out for that. And when you see it, that's what it means, for some reason. And Russians really like to say that something happened for some reason. Нибудь, on the other hand, is best used with questions, regardless of tense, with imperatives or with statements about the future. And these are all things with uncertainty, where you don't have an exact thing in mind. So, for example, «Ты когда-нибудь читал эту книгу?» Have you ever read this book? It's in the past tense, but it's a question. You don't have a specific time in mind. You're saying, have you ever read this book? Ты читаешь какую-нибудь книгу? Are you reading any kind of a book? Are you reading some kind of a book now? And notice that this is actually translated here as some kind. So in English, we would say some kind of a book, probably. Or we could say, are you reading any books right now or any book right now? So in English, this sentence could be translated using either some or any, but in Russian, you need to use the нибудь construction because it's a question, and you don't have a specific book in mind. Or with an imperative, we can say, купи мне что-нибудь. Again, in English, you'd probably say, buy me something, but in Russian, you're indicating that you don't have a specific thing in mind. You're just saying, buy me anything. So we use нибудь. And then a future statement, хорошо, я куплю тебе какой-нибудь десерт. Okay, I'll buy you some kind of dessert. Again, in English, we might translate this using some, but in Russian, because it's a future statement and you don't have a specific thing in mind, you're just going to get them any kind of dessert. So we use какой-нибудь. Another thing that can trip English speakers up sometimes are these negative sentences or negative constructions. And in English, we will often use any in our negative constructions, like, I've never been anywhere. I'm not reading any books. I don't know anything. However, in Russian, you cannot use either to or нибудь in negative constructions. Instead, you must use the ni constructions that we learned earlier in the semester. So, for example, you say, ты что-нибудь читаешь? Are you reading anything? Нет, я ничего не читаю. No, I'm not reading anything. But in Russian, because we have to have a double negative, we have ничего не читаю. I'm not reading nothing. Or again, кто-нибудь звонил? Did someone call or did anyone call? Нет, никто не звонил. No, no one called. In both instances, you must use a не construction with ничего or никто or something like that, followed by не. And so here we are, everyone. We have reached the end of в пути. Congratulations. Finishing it is a huge accomplishment. I hope you feel like you've made lots of progress in Russian and that you are excited for the next stage in your Russian journey. It's been wonderful to do this with you, and I wish you all the best as you continue your studies of Russian.